The special session begins tomorrow, and Governor Steve Beshear says he's confident lawmakers will make an agreement on the budget. They failed to compromise during the regular 60-day session, and now Beshear hopes they can solve their differences in just 5 days. Our Gabriel Rojas is live in our newsroom with more. Gabriel?
Elizabeth, Governor Beshear says he's cautiously optimistic, but he points out that if the Senate and the House can't agree to a budget, some critical parts of the government will likely shut down, and that could have serious consequences. Over the course of 4 months, it began to seem impossible for legislators to reach a budget agreement. But Governor Steve Beshear says after all that time, both the House and Senate are close.
They had agreed on about 95% of the issues, but somehow they just couldn't bring themselves to that agreement, and so I crafted a compromise proposal on that 5%.
Beshear says leaders from both chambers have assured him they can live with that compromise. But he says if they refuse, his hands will be tied when it comes to key government expenses.
We might be able to keep K through 12 running schools, but there's some question about that. Corrections, we probably could keep folks in prison, but you're talking about a whole lot of things that have to be shut down.
The governor says there's no guarantee that even state police could continue to function.
Well, I would have to activate the National Guard probably as a militia, and that I can do that under the Constitution to provide law enforcement protection in a lot of this state if they didn't pass a budget.
That's why Beshear says political leaders across the board will have to meet each other halfway in the special session, even though his solution may not be ideal.
I think it's a good compromise. Is it a good budget? No. I mean, you can't have a good budget in these kind of times, but an austere budget is a lot better than no budget at all.
Beshear tells us there's one area where he will not compromise. Some budget proposals had called for cutting back on the number of classroom days. He says the state will keep the 2 instructional days in question. Live in the newsroom, Gabriel Rojas, WKYT 27 News First.
Thanks so much, Gabriel. Also on this special session agenda, legislation to reinforce the state's unemployment insurance trust fund and a measure to allow bourbon distillers to offer free samples at events like the upcoming World Equestrian Games.